Phanes, firstborn, the principle of light itself, nay, the very curiosity which caused that light to illuminate the unknown, or rather, was it that which was already known that became unknown when that first light issued forth? From whom is the firstborn birthed? How is it possible that the first principle, that first thing, becomes first, from what could have only have been no thing prior? This is the secret of the endlessness light, as it is called in Bereshit, aka Beginning, the first chapter of the book of Genesis, not coincidentally written on the exterior of an egg on display at the Israel Museum, the same egg of creation featured in the Orphic Mysteries. Before proceeding, allow me to state my goal with this series of videos that I've expanded upon Iran, philosophy, and Mithraic cosmology. I seek to provide an overarching context for the social engineering programs that have resulted in the production of world religions, and to establish a thread that connects the various aforementioned aspects with our modern world, in order to show how it is that our current earthly socio-political climate has come into being, why it has evolved as such, and where it might be headed. I am far from the first individual to have tackled this task, and frankly walk in the footsteps of giants who have come before me. And for those colossal minds of intellect, I am forever grateful. Let it be known that I am not a Kabbalist, nor a practitioner of any religion. I am a young man who is extremely curious, and I have an extremely long history of playing the black sheep. Now we return to the discussion of the Godhead. This figure is the Leontocephalus. Quoting from Franz Kuman, quote, "At the pinnacle of the divine hierarchy, and at the origin of all things, the Mithraic theology, the heir of that Zervantic magi, placed boundless time. Sometimes they would call it aeon or saeculum, chronos or Saturnus, but these appellations were conventional and contingent, for he was considered ineffable, bereft alike of name, sex, and passions." End quote. This figure is the Godhead of the mysteries of Orpheus, Dionysus, Mithra, and Jesus all coincide here. This fact is tantamount to another. The Western and Eastern worlds and all that culture that is derived from them in modernity share the same foundation. Imagine a museum with its various departments and cultural displays. The sections of the museum may vary greatly, but the Rockefellers still own it. Quoting from the first American edition of the mythology book, quote, "In Orphic cosmogony, Phanes is often equated with Eros or Mithras, and has been depicted as a deity emerging from a cosmic egg, entwined with a serpent, the Orphic egg. He had a helmet and had broad golden wings." End quote. And a quote from Creation Myths of the World, an encyclopedia, quote, "Kronos is said to have created the silver egg of the universe, out of which burst the firstborn deity Phanes, or Phanes Dionysus." End quote. For the reason outlined in the quotes I have just relayed, understand that I will very likely refer to the Godhead by several names throughout this video, partially to entrain the idea that multiple cultures intersect at this junction of mythology. It's not an easy task to approach the eclectic world of mythology with the goal of arriving at a common center, moreover with the goal of getting down to the brass tacks, if you will. It could even be said that to try and delve to the common root of mythology is a fool's errand, and in that case, I'm the man for the job. But, jokes aside, what is a fool? Who, rather, is the fool? Those familiar with the esoteric world of Kabbalah, more specifically, the compendium of divinatory symbolism known as the Tree of Life, and in particular, the study of the symbolism contained therein, known as the tarot or tarot, will be familiar with the fool. The fool is the Kabbalistic zero, that no thing or nothing from which everything derives. For this reason, in the Hermetic Tree of Life model, the fool, represented by Aleph, is the path which connects the Sephirah Hakma, whose principle is wisdom, to the Sephirah known as Keter, the crown, which itself is closest to the unknowable. There are indeed multiple instances of the fool. Some people are foolish, while other people are not so foolish as to believe that they know a thing which is entirely unknowable. An interesting recurrence in the world of the occult is that those individuals whom set off on the path to quote unquote enlightenment most often find that enlightenment, as it is commonly called, isn't the attainment of omnipotence or omniscience. Enlightenment for many individuals is the realization that you don't know shit. I feel no need to expand upon that point any further. So, what or who, then, is the personification of the fool? How is the fool anthropomorphized? Look no further than characters such as Dionysus, Jesus, Mithra, Horus, and Hercules, the Green Man of the Spring Festival, aka April Fool or Holy Ghost, etc. The fool is both the unknowable and the knower who wishes to know. This again is the central mystery of creation. Mithra is the god of the rising sun, covenants, contracts that is, friendship, love and light. He is a god of war. He is Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. But note, this particular epithet is not a reference to the visible sun, which dies and is reborn, though Mithra is involved with those instances. The undying sun, the unconquerable sun, is the black sun, the sun which never sets. That thing, if it can be called a thing at all, which causes all other things to be illuminated. Take a dream, for instance. The characters therein often seem just as real as the waking world, and might even claim to be such. But who is it that causes the dream to manifest? Is there a complex series of forethought that is required to concoct a dream and all that is contained therein? People, cityscapes, flora, fauna, machinery, flight, space travel, dancing elephants with wings, whatever it is that you dream. Was it a complicated mathematical procedure which called for extensive blueprints, diagrams with months of planning, and multitudes of professionals called in to perform in their areas of expertise to construct this dreamscape within which you find yourself? Or did the dream simply manifest? This is the nature of the black sun. Firstborn, protagonos, feigns. As previously stated, and to be stated more explicitly, feigns, aka Mithra, Kronos, Dionysus, is the central godhead of the mysteries. This includes the mysteries of Christianity. In Zervanite cosmogony, described as a fatalistic sect of Zoroastrianism, this character is known as Zorovan. Zorovan is the first principle, the endless and unknowable abyss which engendered the dualistic twins Ahriman, the crown prince of chaos, and Ahura Mazda, the lord of wisdom. Zorovan is described in the Persian Riwayats as a seven-headed beast and is hermaphroditic. Thus, Zorovan is the mother of all creation, and it is from this idea that early 20th century Kabbalists such as Aleister Crowley obtained the idea of Babylon. Babylon is lock, stock, and barrel Zorovan from Zoroastrianism. Babylon's number is 7, and is too a seven-headed beast. Quoting from Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth, quote, 7 are the veils of the dancing girl in the harem of It. 7 are the names, and 7 are the lamps beside her bed. 7 eunuchs guard her with drawn swords. No man may come nigh unto her. In her wine cup are 7 streams of the blood of the 7 spirits of God. 7 are the heads of the beast whereon she rideth. The head of an angel, the head of a saint, the head of a poet, the head of an adulterous woman, the head of a man of valor, the head of a satyr, and the head of a lion serpent. 7 letters hath her holiest name, and it is Babylon. This is the seal upon the ring that is on the forefinger of It, and it is the seal upon the tombs of them whom she hath slain. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of Our Lady, for it is the number of a woman, and her number is 156. End quote. As mentioned in previous videos, Aleister Crowley was the head of the OTO, that is, the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was composed of 3 levels of mystery schools that initiates passed through during successive levels of ordination. The lowest level of initiations took place within the Order of the Golden Dawn. Initiates were then elevated to the Order of the Rosy Red Cross, aka the Rosicrucians. And finally, the highest levels of initiation took place within the framework of the Order of the Silver Star. All of these mystery schools are, of course, closely intertwined with Freemasonry, and being initiated into one school does not prohibit initiation into several. In fact, entry into multiple orders is quite often the case, and allows for particular schools, such as Freemasonry, to proclaim such absurdly, broadly sweeping nonsense, such as, quote, Freemasonry does not engage in the study of the occult, end quote. It is no coincidence that orders such as the Freemasons and Skull and Bone Society still preserve Mithraic traditions well into modern day. Zordavan promises the kingdom of creation to his or her firstborn, which is Ahriman. Thus, the kingdom is delivered unto darkness. The reason for this deliverance unto evil is that Zordavan fails to properly fathom himself or herself and has not yet attained self-awareness. This failure is known as the doubt of Zordavan, and this doubt, in turn, gives rise to an entity known as the concupiscence, or Oz. The concupiscence is feminine, the mother of all demons, the embodiment of sin, and it is from here that the biblical capital vices, aka 7 deadly sins, come, remembering that Babylon, mother of all abominations, is represented by the number 7. Ahriman is also known as Padyar, or the adversary. Theodore Bar Konai renders Padyar as Satan and tells us that Ahriman is made to rule the world for 3/4 of a cosmic war, before Ahura Mazda, the twin of light, is destined to overcome the influence of sin. Ahriman is described as the ruler of Dunya, which suggests that he controls the material, which is separate from the Giti, or spiritual world. The Neoplatonists, that is, the early Gnostic sects of Christianity, hold views keeping in line with this cosmogony. Their devil, or demiurge, is birthed from Sophia out of ignorance in a parthenogenic fashion, which is to say asexually, without a partner. The demiurge, then, being some sort of ultra inbred cosmic bastard. The Gnostics do seem to expand upon the cosmogony with the invention of a multiplicity of worlds, a model which later becomes represented within the branches of the Tree of Life, and which seeks to describe the progressive descent of spirit into matter. Ultimately, the doctrine that arises from this Zoroastrian precursor, and which finds its way to the modern day in the most absurdly impactful of ways, is the doctrine of precession. That is, the precession of the equinoxes. This is the so-called scientific doctrine which originated with these beliefs I have just described, where over the course of a great year, that is 25,920 years, a cosmic war takes place between the dualistic forces of light and darkness. This war acts as a process of distillation, which serves to separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will, the dark from the light. This is the evolution of the light, and it is the same doctrine that is reflected in the eschatological views of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Norse, and Taoist beliefs. It is the teleological framework that results in the coming of the Abrahamic Messiah, or Zoroastrian Saoshyant, or Buddhist Maitreya. Mithra is the light, which is destined to overcome, whereupon Mithra ascends above the celestial sphere wherein all takes place, grabs hold of the celestial axis mundi, and ushers in a new age by moving the constellations. Thus, Mithra is too the god of precession and obtains the power of creation, just as Dionysus is destined to do within the Orphic mysteries. Mithra, that is Phanes, the Leontocephalus, is the entity that has influenced in no small fashion many leading world religions. Aside from those aspects just discussed, here's a quick rundown of a few more. in reference to Christianity, or rather Abrahamic faiths in particular. Mithra is born on the winter solstice, which becomes Christmas through calendrical reforms. I've discussed the Christmas aspect a great deal in my Origin of Christmas video. Eastern Iranian traditions hold the view that the birth of Mithras was a virgin birth, with his mother and consort Anahita, aka the Lady of the Lake, of the Arthurian Grail mythos, whom submerges into Lake Hamun, where the seed of Zarathustra was preserved. Mithras has a communal feast, that from which the Abrahamic sacrament of the Eucharist is derived, wherein the Mithras would eat loaves of bread cut into circles and marked with an X, as the X is the symbol of Mithraism and denotes the crossing of the celestial equator with the ecliptic. The Chi Rho symbol, often mistakenly attributed to Christianity, is a Mithraic symbol too, and denotes the pole star above the same X, the celestial equator and ecliptic. The Chi Rho has been decoded elsewhere as a symbol of Saturn, which is correct. It's Kronos, which indeed is the character derived from Zorvan, as the infinite abyss of time and space, aka Mithra. Amanita muscaria mushrooms, heavily associated with Mithra, the Scythian tribes and mystery religions, grow underneath the evergreen trees that utilize for Christmas, which too gives us the Christmas colors of red, white, and green. These are the same mushrooms that would be used to lace the wine that Mithras drank, which later came to be associated with Jesus when Christianity assimilated the title of, quote, the true vine, end quote. The geometry of the Phrygian cap that Mithras wears became the design for the mitre, the liturgical headdress worn by Christian bishops and abbots. Orpheus, for whom the Orphic mysteries are named, and from where the character feigns Dionysus comes from, is also pictured wearing a Phrygian cap. As I've discussed in previous videos, I find it highly suspect that a series of historical events plays out as follows. Pythagoras is taken into Babylon, the administrative capital of the Persian Empire, at the behest of Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, with Cyrus being the Messiah of the Jews, and Persia, moreover Iran, being the homeland of the biblical Magi, the wise men from the east, with whom the Mithraic, Zoroastrian, and Judaic doctrines are derived. After Samos, the homeland of Pythagoras, is conquered by the Achaemenid Empire, and only then does Pythagoras return home to Samos after having studied with the Persian Magi for some 12 years. Pythagoras ultimately establishes several mystery schools, one within Croton, Italy. Plato is born shortly thereafter and follows in the footsteps of Pythagoras, also studying within Egypt and Babylon, and being a known member of the Pythagorean order. As Mary Zetagast reports in When Zarathustra Spoke, the Magi showed up at Plato's funeral and confirmed him to be a member of their order as well. Plato is the man who postulated the existence of the procession of equinoxes to begin with. It is from him that the term great year or Platonic year comes. This man, who has learned the mysteries of the Persian god Mithra, who is the god of procession, an initiate of the order of Pythagoras, whom view the sphere that comes to be the globe model of the earth as perfection, postulates that a procession exists. Go figure. Less than 200 years later, another Greek astronomer comes along, Hipparchus, whom credit is given to for discovering the precession of the equinoxes, with Plato having proposed it as a philosophical concept not too long prior. It's also interesting to note that none of Hipparchus's work on precession actually exists in modern day, another trend within the realm of so-called historicity. So to recap quickly, and this is not part of my script, but I really want to drive this home, you have a series of philosophical initiates of these mystery religions who believe in very particular doctrines, one of them being the perfection of the shape of a sphere, which comes to be the shape that's associated with Earth. Not because it makes sense, it doesn't make sense, but because it's what they associate with perfection. And this is in the 6th century BC, so thousands of years before the invention of modern astronomical tools. Thousands of years before you could ascend to 150,000 feet with modern day technology in a high altitude balloon to the upper levels of the stratosphere and see that, well, there is no curvature. Thousands of years ago, when people like Aristotle first postulated so-called proofs of this perfection of the Earth as a globe, with observations such as objects disappearing over the horizon and disappearing from bottom up first. These philosophers, who were extremely renowned for their abilities with rhetoric, the ability to sway or manipulate the mind. Mind you, that particular proof is one that is literally still used to this very day, and it is one that has been debunked for easily hundreds, if not thousands of years, probably as long as it has existed. This is called the law of perspective, and it's not a question, this is a fact. This is how perspective works. Parallel lines are seen to converge into the distance upon one and the same datum line, but are seen to reach it at different distances if themselves dissimilarly distant. It is necessary that objects disappear from the bottom up, no matter how horizontal or flat your surface is. This is always what will happen. That is, as long as there is a surface within your point of view. Many of these same people are the same individuals that believed in doctrines like atomism, again, same time period, 6th century BC, who postulated that everything was composed of individual units of energy called atoms. Again, not actually something that exists in the real world. These people believe in doctrines of precession and associate it with their highest gods, or rather the only god. From them, world religions come up. These people are renowned for being social engineers. This is what Plato's Republic is literally about. Social engineering. Fast forward to modern day, current day, and people on average, and this is not an exaggeration, literally believe that in the reference of space, there is no such thing as up or down. People literally believe that there's no such thing as level in the sense of horizontal or flat surface. The definition of level has been reinterpreted to mean points equidistant from the center of a sphere. I have literally recently had people tell me that level does not mean flat. I've had people laugh at me when I tell them that the shape of their eye, believe it or not, plays a role into how you perceive objects. But I digress. Indeed, this is the theme for many so-called wonders of science that stem from heliocentric cosmology. The evidence is questionable at best, and its existence relies mostly on people taking the words of others for granted. But I suspect that, regardless of everything, many people will fail to understand the information I present or why I present it. As a final interesting aside, there are many Gnostic movements still active today, and some of them have recently oriented heavily towards explanations of the alien conspiracy theories, usually describing so-called aliens as spirits and or demons. Some Gnostic movements have even entered into the realm of modern science fiction, describing aliens as higher frequency beings that are interdimensional and hail from higher dimensions beyond the third. Keylontics is one such movement that is heavily engrossed in this area, and it is my opinion that these Gnostic sects are a potential gateway for mainstream religions to become engrossed within the alien psyop that has been playing out on the world stage, thanks in no short part to heliocentric cosmology. You may think it funny to hear it now, but when these views have become so mainstream that millions of people are now watching videos having to do with secret alien moon bases, and the moon being used as an alien broadcasting station to control the material realm, I'd say it's become a pretty big deal in a pretty short span of time. We will have to see what this psyop holds in the future. Or rather, what it holds in store for us in the future. But for now, I hope that you have learned something from this video, and hope that I've been able to provide context on one of the more obscure pieces of mythology and mystery religions. I'm not so naive as to think that I have the answers. I don't. but I'm also not so naive as to believe these heliocentric mass manipulators. And personally, Matt Damon is still my favorite astronaut. Until next time, much love.